On a cool autumn morning in the quiet suburb of Maplewood, Illinois, 34-year-old Ethan Carter was watering the flowers outside his modest home when his new neighbor waved nervously from across the street. Her name was Olivia Bennett, a kind but reserved woman in her early 30s who had recently purchased the old Victorian house at the end of the block. Cardboard boxes were stacked across her porch, and a moving truck stood waiting in the driveway. She smiled politely before walking over. "Hi," she said. "I hate to ask, but would you mind helping me move a few heavy boxes? I don't really have anyone else." Ethan had no plans that Saturday, so he smiled and agreed. Of course, neighbors help neighbors. As they carried furniture into the house, Ethan noticed something unusual. The home looked frozen in time. Antique clocks ticked softly on the walls, faded family portraits lined the hallway, and every room carried the scent of lavender and old wood. It felt less like a newly purchased house and more like someone had simply stepped away for a moment. While Ethan was carrying an old rocking chair upstairs, he heard a faint voice. "You finally came." He turned around and saw an elderly woman sitting quietly beside the bedroom window. Her silver hair was neatly tied back, and despite her age, her bright blue eyes seemed strangely familiar. Olivia smiled. "This is my grandmother, Margaret Bennett. She's 92. Margaret slowly reached for Ethan's hand. Her fingers trembled as she whispered again. "She's been waiting for you." A chill ran through Ethan's body. "For me?" he asked, confused. Margaret nodded gently, but said nothing more. The words echoed in Ethan's mind for the rest of the afternoon. Olivia looked embarrassed. "I'm sorry," she laughed nervously. "Grandma says mysterious things sometimes. The doctors think it's because of her memory." But Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that those words meant something. Later that evening, after most of the boxes had been unpacked, Olivia invited Ethan to stay for coffee. While preparing drinks in the kitchen, she accidentally knocked over a small wooden box. Inside were dozens of old black and white photographs. One picture immediately caught Ethan's attention. It showed a young soldier standing beside a smiling nurse during the summer of 1954. The soldier looked exactly like Ethan. His heart nearly stopped. "How is this possible?" he whispered. Olivia looked at the photo. "Oh, that's my grandfather, Thomas Bennett, and the nurse beside him is my grandmother when she was 20. Ethan pointed at the soldier. "That man, he looks exactly like me." Margaret slowly wheeled herself into the room. "He should," she whispered. "He was your grandfather." Silence filled the room. Ethan stared at her in disbelief. "My grandfather died before I was born," he said. Margaret nodded. "Yes, but before he died, he made me promise something." She slowly opened another envelope containing several old letters. "The Carter family disappeared after a terrible misunderstanding many years ago. Your grandfather believed that one day someone from his family would find this house." Margaret carefully handed Ethan a faded letter. Inside was a handwritten message. "If my grandson ever comes here, give him the truth. Our families were never enemies." They were family. Ethan's hands shook as tears filled his eyes. Growing up, he had always believed his grandfather had no surviving relatives outside his own parents. But the letters told a completely different story. Decades earlier, a disagreement over inheritance had separated two branches of the same family. Pride kept them apart for over 60 years. Margaret had waited all that time to fulfill a promise. "She wasn't waiting for just anyone," Olivia said softly. "She was waiting for you." Over the following weeks, Ethan and Olivia spent countless evenings reading old journals, organizing family records, and contacting distant relatives whose names had nearly been forgotten. Every discovery revealed another missing piece of a family history buried beneath decades of silence. The neighborhood soon noticed something special happening inside the old Victorian house. Laughter replaced loneliness. Family dinners replaced empty rooms. Holidays became celebrations shared by relatives who had never met before. Margaret watched everything from her favorite rocking chair with quiet satisfaction. One snowy December evening, she called Ethan to her side. "My promise is finished," she whispered. "You brought everyone home." She gently squeezed his hand before peacefully closing her eyes forever. At her funeral, dozens of reunited family members stood together, many meeting for the first time. They weren't mourning only Margaret's passing. They were celebrating the extraordinary gift she had left behind. Months later, Ethan and Olivia transformed the old Victorian home into a family gathering place where every Thanksgiving and Christmas Generations would share stories, photographs, and laughter. Above the fireplace hung the faded photograph of the young soldier. Beside it rested Margaret's final letter. It read, "Sometimes people think they're helping a neighbor move boxes, when in reality, they're carrying an entire family back together." And every time Ethan looked at those words, he remembered the quiet whisper that had changed his life forever. "She's been waiting for you."